Well, hello again, and welcome to another edition of Weird News and Wacky History, a look behind the scenes of what's been happening throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, that old weird history dude. Say, there's a lot of firsts in the world. Here's just a few of the ones you may not have heard of. The very earliest Olympic Games were all about strength and stamina and were grueling in the extreme. One of the most strenuous was the pancration. Introduced in 648 BC and meaning all of power, it was an all-out, no-holds-barred exhibit of raw brute force. Part boxing, part wrestling, it also featured kicks, choking, joint locks, and various holds, making it similar to modern mixed martial arts. Greek mythology proposes that Heracles and Theseus invented the sport based on their fighting techniques. Theseus supposedly used these moves to conquer the Minotaur, while Heracles is said to have tapped his skills to defeat a Nemean lion. Undoubtedly one of the greatest pancratists was Arachion of Phagalia. The undisputed champion of the sport in the 52nd and 53rd Games, he was back to defend his title in the 54th Games of 564 BC. Greek writer Pausanias gives us a ringside commentary. His opponent, quote, hugged him with his legs, and at the same time he squeezed his neck with his hands. Arachion dislocated his opponent's toe, but expired owing to suffocation, unquote. The judges were so impressed by Arachion's technique that they still ruled in his favor, thus making him the only dead person to ever win an Olympic event. Meanwhile, over in Corinth, railroading was getting its start. Mention the earliest railroading, and folks envisioned boilers mounted on wheels using steam to move trains along. Actually, the first railroad moved ships between the Ionian and Aegean seas in ancient Greece. It was already old when Thucydides wrote about it in the 400s BC. Called the diolklos, from dia meaning across and olklos meaning portage, this unique railway spanned the narrow isthmus near the ancient city of Corinth. To avoid the lengthy, dangerous voyage around the entire Peloponnesian peninsula, some 4 to 5 miles of trackage followed the curvature of the land up and over the other side. Unlike modern raised track, the diolklos used deep grooves cut 63 inches apart into the solid stone instead. Ships were floated onto carriages, secured, and then hauled over to the other side with the wheels running in the channels. Human teams of slaves, estimated between 112 and 142 people, provided the power. Sadly, 2,000 years of erosion in the canal have badly damaged the remains of the diolklos. Such a thing wouldn't be seen again until the Allegheny Portage Railroad used the same techniques, only with raised rails and steam power instead, to get canal boats up and over the Pennsylvania's Allegheny Mountains from the 1830s through the 1850s. In the automotive world, somebody had to be the first to have a crash. We consider automotive production as synonymous with Detroit, the Motor City, but the late 19th and early 20th century saw innovators and inventors alike flock to Cleveland, making it a leader in early automotive technology. Many important innovations in steering, brakes, suspension, and overall usability emerged from these early years, including one dubious distinction: the very first automotive accident. The roads of yesteryear were far from conducive to motorized vehicles and filled with hordes of hazards. James William Lambert was a leader in car design and would hold the patent for over 600 inventions. But on that day in 1891, he made history in another less desirable manner. Lambert was motoring along in Ohio City, a current suburb of Cleveland, in his homemade single-cylinder vehicle with James Swoveland sitting beside him in the passenger seat. Lambert unexpectedly struck a tree root growing out of the middle of the roadway, lost control of the car, and slammed into a hitching post. Considering the minimal speed at which they were traveling, the two dusted themselves off, made sure there was no damage to themselves, the car, or the hitching post, and then drove away. It was the first of an ocean of accidents that have plagued America's roads ever since. And finally, here's a bit more of a modern landmark first. On January 9th, 2007, barista Ying Hang Hannah Zhang was at work at Starbucks in San Francisco. When the phone rang, she answered with her usual greetings. "Good morning. How may I help you?" The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. "Yes, I'd like to order 4,000 lattes to go." "No, just kidding. Wrong number. Goodbye." And with that, the prank caller hung up. At which point, the crowd at the other end listening in burst into laughter. The call was made from on stage at San Francisco's Moscone Center by Steve Jobs, the very first cell phone call from his new iPhone. For Hannah, it was a surreal experience. Honestly, I was shocked. I've never heard someone order 4,000 lattes to go. I didn't say anything because I was in shock, but my first impression was that he was just being humorous. He sounded like a gentleman. Hannah and her star's manager, Kimiko Barber, did the math. If it takes 44 seconds per drink, Jobs' take-on order would have taken 48 hours to complete. Apple aficionados and Steve Jobs fans now routinely flock to her Starbucks like it's a mystic techno shrine. and orders for 4,000 lattes to go are now a common occurrence. And that's all the time we have for this episode of Weird News and Wacky History, a look behind the scenes of what's been happening throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, author, historian, and speaker, wishing that all of your history may be just a little bit weird.